welcome everyone. Uh, Being a materials engineer, I just play around with materials, and that's why I started a consultancy firm where basically I'm focusing how to, at molecular level, look into the environmental issues and then come up with some kind of sustainable solutions. And yes, thank you. Sustainable means economically sustainable, environmentally sustainable, because if it's not economically feasible or sustainable, we cannot basically continue the practices. So today I'll just try to highlight how farmers can basically play a major or pivotal role in our sustainable fuel systems. Let's look into that. So this is one of my favorite picture. If you see, this is you can imagine like 300 or 400 years ago. This was the ecosystem which each and every village was following. Biomass was the core of energy chain and food chain. You can see the bullock carts, the animals were fed by biomass. The cattle dung was used as a fertilizer. Biomass was used as a food also, and also for the energy chain. So till that time, till this point of time when we were sustainable and kind of an individual society, entire carbon chain was kind of neutral. But then suddenly what happened? We started adding more fossil fuels. Mostly we added oil, crude oil and coal. And then we all know that. We all increased the carbon footprint of our entire world and population. But we cannot avoid that because of the growing population. We need the machines and we need more efficient means of our way of living. So we cannot avoid that. So this was the carbon spike basically, which we saw in last 100 or 200 years. Why it happens? We all know that because we basically try to add carbon, taking from below the ground and then add it into our atmosphere. But there was no such balance mechanism we have followed. How to basically reduce the carbon footprint, how to take back the carbon into the ground. So that's why almost around 100 or 200 years we suffered and the carbon spike increased. Now let's see agriculture, that particular segment basically, the agricultural practices or activities, they consume somewhere close to 5% of the energy. Okay, but still nowadays we very often see, listen and hear about agricultural disaster or stubble burning, that kind of issues related to our air pollution, and we blame them. But you see the energy consumption, mostly the industries they consume more, and then the transport sector and the household activities. So these are the major energy footprint sectors. But agriculture being the 5% total energy consumption sector, they are contributing in renewable energies almost around 10%. So let's focus how we can increase that renewable energy sector or renewable portion of the energy from agricultural sector. So if I come to our modern days farming, so right now we know that we need machineries because per hectare cultivation we have to grow because we have to meet the demand. So we cannot avoid the machineries. So that's why the carbon footprint related to agricultural machineries for 1 kg of rice production is somewhere close to 2 to 6 kg equivalent of carbon dioxide. Plus we need huge amount of water. Agriculture requires huge amount of water. That is also another topic which we have to discuss probably in other another sector, another session probably we have to conduct for that. What else we agriculture pollute? Air pollution, obviously during the cultivation period they pollute lot of dust. During the harvesting period nowadays they burn the stubble, so that's why the air pollution increase. On top of that, agrochemical runoff and the soil degradation is a major drawback basically. But we cannot avoid that because we need food basically. So now let's understand what all we are producing and what is the cost for that, what impact it makes in our environment. So the major questions: can we reduce agricultural activities? No, we cannot. Can we reduce the water footprint? Probably yes, that we have to discuss in a separate session. Can we use sustainable energy? Yes. There are modern machineries available nowadays, modern agricultural machineries available nowadays, where we can basically follow the same independent society or independent agricultural society where we don't have to connect to the main grid. Grid means I am saying the electrical grid or the petrochemical grid. So we can go off grid completely and survive. There are machineries available. Can we repurpose the residue? Because crop is a very important thing. We need that for our food support, even sometimes for energy production also we need the crop. So we cannot throw the crop. Now what about the residue? Because when we are growing the crop, the residue is a byproduct basically, and we are not reutilizing that. Now let's understand with respect to rice production, because world consumes somewhere close to around 500 million tons of rice. In that, India is producing around 120 million tons. So if you see 1 kg of rice production, it creates somewhere close to 1.5 to 2 kg of residue, which is stubbles and rice straw and all these stuffs. It consumes somewhere close to around 4.5 to 6 kilowatt hour of energy. So the residue holds around that much of energy, which normally if you go to the rural India, they consume that much of electricity. So 1 kg of rice, by default they are producing that much of energy which can support one household. And on top of that, very important thing, it's capturing carbon dioxide somewhere close to 2 kg, which is very crucial right now, and we have to think about that. What we are spending to produce 1 kg of rice, we are spending very valuable land space, somewhere close to 4 square meter, around 8 minutes of man hour we are spending, and around 2 to 5 kg of fossil carbon footprint we are generating. So we are consuming fossil fuels and then running our agricultural machineries. So that is the cost we are paying to produce 1 kg of rice. On top of that, we are consuming water also. So what about the residual part? Rice is fine, we need for the food, but the residual part, which is the rice straw and the roots adding carbon value to the earth. So it's consuming, basically capturing carbon from the atmosphere, and it's sequestering the carbon. So in a different, in a way it's basically helping us. But the residual part, we are not thinking anything about that. So this one is, we can consider as a biocell. Any plant, they are consuming solar energy from the sunlight. Whenever the photosynthesis is happening, they consume nutrients from the soil, they consume water from the soil, and they basically absorb sunlight, which is nothing but energy, and they store it in themselves. So a biomass or a plant, we can think of it is a very excellent organic cell or battery basically. So let's explore, can we use this battery or can we use this stored energy in different forms? So if you look into the past, we have developed all the machineries keeping biofuel in mind, biomass in mind. That time when we designed diesel engine or even internal combustion engine, entire thing we designed keeping biofuel in mind. First diesel engine tested using peanut oil. So we never thought that we had deposition of fossil fuel or fossil crude oil. So biomass was the core when we started designing machineries. These are the actual pictures during World War I and II when we were struggling with the supply chain of crude oil. We basically used biomass and practiced how to mobilize our mobilities. Almost around, these are not prototypes, almost around 1 million vehicle we produced at point of time, including tanks, tractors, even small aircrafts also we have designed, and that was sustainable. Then why we deviated and then again used fossil fuel? See, these are not aesthetically attractive. If you see the vehicle at such way, it's not aesthetically attractive. The wood is not very dense energy basically, because it's very light in weight. So we need lesser amount of refuel. We cannot imagine we are driving these kind of cars in Kolkata and every 5 minutes we have to stop to a farmer's place and ask them biomass. So what is the possibilities? So if you see molecularly, biomass is very close to crude oil. Crude oil's molecule is world's longest carbon hydrogen chain. Lignin is the second longest carbon hydrogen chain. So we can break down this biomass and we can form simpler molecules. We can convert into ultra pure hydrogen, which is the talking point right now. It's the cleanest form of energy right now we are thinking. We can break down into methane, carbon dioxide, smokeless coal, and tar. So imagine biomass which is basically thrown or burnt into the normal atmosphere. We can crack down into all these valuable energy sources, and our modern machineries, they are capable of using this energy forms basically. So we don't need those kind of crude machineries which I was showing in the previous slide. We don't need that. So if you see the energy efficiency of these kind of fuels, wood, which we started using 200 years back when we started designing external steam engines or maybe wood fire engines, wood is the less efficient fuel form. We can convert biomass into vegetable oil or ethanol, which is the talking point again right now. They are mixing ethanol with petrol right now. So this is much better, superior than wood. And then we basically discovered fossil fuel or crude oil, which we are refining it centrally, and we are refining it into petrol and diesel. So these refineries are all centralized refineries. It's hugely controlled by geopolitical scenario basically. So the oil deposition countries, they control the fuel prices, and you have to heavily depend on your friend countries to get this kind of crude oil if it's not available in your country. Now if you see the top chart, hydrogen and methane, that has the maximum energy efficiency, and which we can source from these biomasses. In that 1 kg of hydrogen can give us somewhere close to almost 3 times more mileage. So that's the possibility. And we have hydrogen cars, we all know that. And if we burn hydrogen, we'll just generate moisture, that is water. It's a completely non-polluting ecosystem. So what we have to do, if wood is so good and we have all the solutions in our hand, we can crack wood into different fuels. We have vehicles which can run on these kind of fuels, or we have machineries which can run on these fuels. The availability of biomass. So we discovered coal mines or crude oil depositions, and then we found like we can basically mine those things and bring it to refineries or our point of use. But biomass is scattered all across, and it's very less dense basically. So we have to mine biomass. We have to map where these biomasses are available, seasonally, where all we can find these biomasses, what is the energy density they have. So this is one task, probably one new industry probably can form maybe in next decade, where biomass mining will be another huge industry like other mining processes. Now how to convert this biomass into a useful energy value system? I mean, we have to convert that into a very valuable fuel system basically. We cannot design a centralized facility because biomass is scattered all across. We cannot carry biomass 1,000 kilometers far away and then crack into different fuels. So let's figure out, when we started designing these kind of machines, biomass based machines, entire design philosophy was based on decentralization. So even if you go back to the history, 500 years back, one single village, they were producing food, the residue they were giving it to the cattle, and that was giving us transportation fuel and fuel for our household. So that decentralization we have to think, and we can design a system. I'm just showing some numbers here. Our latest census is saying normal average Indian village has around 1,500 household, and 6 square kilometers is the land space they have. Within that, around 4 to 5 square kilometers they use for their cultivation. That is good enough to support us with a 15 ton per day capacity biomass refinery, which can give us enough hydrogen, methane and coal, where we can give around 1,600 household cooking gas, around 100 cars we can refuel. We can use that charcoal, which will be residual part of this refinery, to improve the soil fertility. That is good enough to give 4 square kilometer of cultivation land. And on top of that, we'll get hydrogen, which we are all discussing right now, to crack hydrogen from water. But again, water is not available everywhere. I mean, we are blessed in Eastern India, we have enough water. But if you just go to Jharkhand and those places, during summer the water is not available. So we are getting hydrogen as a bonus in this entire bio ecosystem. We can generate power out of it, around 12,000 units of electricity we can generate, which can power up around 1,200 household, or the surplus power we can use in different industries basically. So in a nutshell, a village where we have somewhere close to around 1,500 household, it can go off grid now using biofuels. What about our state, West Bengal, where we are sitting right now? West Bengal generates somewhere close to 11 million metric tons of residue. That is only the rice straw. That can power somewhere close to 3,000 villages right now. So if we implement these kind of decentralized biorefinery, 3,000 villages can go off grid, and the 3,000 villages, they will contribute to towards the negative carbon footprint, because during cultivation it will consume the CO2 which we are generating in the cities. It will not dependent on the grid power anymore, and the surplus hydrogen we can feed it to our hydrogen economy. So to achieve this, I think we have to start modeling one of our villages. As a chief technology officer of our organization, right now we are practicing one model here in West Bengal, and we are trying to implement one of such off-grid village ecosystem. And hopefully within few years, we'll be delivering couple of these kind of off-grid village projects, and we will all get benefit out of it. With that, I'll just end my discussion here. The path is towards sustainable fuel economy, and obviously this time again, farmers will be the part of fuel economy. When 200 years or 500 years back, farmers, they were the backbone of food as well as energy chain. Again, I hope they can be part of our sustainable fuel economy. Thank you.